that's what has been happening, and I want to ask my community, like, give us a chance. We can't destroy this wonderful organization because it's a community thing. What we can do is provide insight and support, and I think that's what the community is lacking, a little bit of patience. I know they don't trust us. I wish y'all could, and if y'all really got to know us and even do some Google research on any individual one of us, you might find something that might be really powerful for this community. And I feel really confident with this, to say that if you just give us a chance, we'll incorporate everything you got, sister, because I'm all into what you're doing, and I will back that up to the fullest 100%. We gotta land this. We inherited quite a bit of a mess and quite a bit of a situation, and we gotta land this before we can really get into how and what and stuff like that. So give us some time to curb our learn of what it is we're even doing here, because there's no model, there's no instruction manual of how to run this. Sorry.
I mean, I'm concerned about the time, and I'm gonna make my statement short. Two things. I think it's pretty clear historically that what has happened with the after-school program is it has never been totally funded at the beginning of the school year. And those funds do have historically come in. It has happened. And, I have to say, this is very close to my heart because I know those kids. I spent a lot of time with those kids. And I know how valuable it is. And to me, I really do grieve that we don't have it. And truthfully, I would love, I didn't really see why a program like this couldn't just be continued. And then if people want to evaluate or whatever, they can do it. I mean, what's happened is we have no program. And here we are in the spring semester and we have no program. And it's not us, it's these kids. And it's very sad because it's a very beneficial thing, because these are kids that most of them are beginning readers, or they may be a little more advanced, but to be here and to experience just being in the library, despite what's happening, I think it's very critical. Yeah. So I'm sorry, but I'm very saddened that it didn't just continue. And then if people want to evaluate it, I would have loved to see the board do their work then, but to not just keep this going and get to the point now where it seems pretty unlikely it's not going to happen this school year. I'm sorry.
So what I'm going to do is just cut in real quick. I'm sorry, Robin, but one of the reasons why when I first took over doing the job of running these meetings, I was very engaging with the audience and I wanted everybody to talk and I wanted to hear to everybody's feelings. And we got through almost nothing on our agenda. And this conversation will go on for a really long time. That's why we give people, every person that talks, we write it down and we address it. And then we either get back to you personally or we address it in the next meeting. And so we're trying to get this process so that we can streamline the meetings so that we can actually accomplish managing and on the other front, if you want to talk and meet with us individually and personally, many of us are available for that. I've said many times that you can get my number from Rosalia, she can give it out. I know where you live over by the Embudo train station. I can go have coffee with you anytime, or you can come and talk to me. And I've made that open to everybody in the community. And so if you'd like to be heard, we're here for you. You just have to reach out to us. We don't have enough time. Yeah. But there,
the whole community would like to have a meeting where they can feel what you said to me, because that made a big difference.
And there are other things. We're inviting all the community members to come to all of our committee meetings, anybody that's interested. So we have like the DEI committee that we're having the big potlucks at, and we're reading books and we're discussing together and we're getting to know each other on a personal level. We'll have we're on the personnel committee, and our next personnel meeting will be a public one where we can talk about the public's idea of how we should be managing the personnel and what we should be looking for and what and so we're opening it up to the community. But what you have to realize is I made a 3-year commitment. Sylvia made a 3-year commitment. This isn't going to happen in 1 or 2 or 3 months. It's going to be over 3 years that we're going to be getting to know each other and building a better community center and library. And so that's just one of those things like,
So, well, I didn't understand what you were saying, but the program, that haven't given up on the after-school program this year.
It's gonna be touched on,
It'll be touched.
right?
Oh,
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about these things.
but I wanted to get back to, you said you were gonna read something, is it
It was
something
from Aya.
pretty, is it pretty short that you could read now, or do you wanna email it if it's longer?
I'll email it to you.
Okay,
But
great.
She asked about Rachel, she wanted to know how much money the new two people are costing instead of one. A lot of people like to know that.
Right, we
That's something you
have the
can
numbers
follow.
for all of it this morning. Yes, that's been a question that's been coming up for a while that we've been answering.
So what's the answer?
You had 3 employees before, right?
We have more,
Yeah, more.
we had a director and maybe I should just let you
Okay,
speak to
so
that.
we had-
Should we maybe talk about it in financials?
Oh, God, yeah, it
Well,
would be great to talk about it.
let's-
financially.
yeah, so
Can
let's
we
just move on.
to Actual.
Yeah,
To the-
we got unraveled.
About the financial impact of our new.
2 directors
Two
instead of.
Yeah.
directors for staffing
our
then,
new
yeah.
Administrative settings.
So
Yeah.
to make it really
Any
simple,
other questions?
Okay, so I'll
The-
just read a paragraph real quick.
Okay.
Unifying, this is the beginning for things, you answer that. Unifying our community is the most important thing we can strive for. It's not an easy task by any means, but to deliberately go out and send threatening emails, name calling, and creating fear members not going to unify anyone. Staying calm in seemingly opposing views, honesty, respect, and being caring can go a lot further in this endeavor. I wish us all luck.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, I think that chews up all of our time for the community. input.
Wait, I think we did have someone.
Do we have somebody online?
Yeah,
that
I
we can
think
talk
so.
to? Okay,
Hold on, I think there was a raised hand. I'm so sorry, Okay, did anyone raise their hand for a moment of community feedback? I thought I saw a hand earlier. Nope.
all right. And then that's gonna, you're gonna, number 1 is gonna be the
Report.
ED report.
I will be right there. Give me 1 second. I'm giving your number out, Tony.
Okay,
Okay. Okay, so ED report, so we received the first set of reports that we had requested from Taya. When we first came on, Taya let us know that she had been working since Rachel got hired on doing this restricted versus unrestricted funding report because our funds were quite tangled. So we finally got this report, and what it boils it down to is we've got approximately, or we've had since September, about $8,000 for, after school program. So we have $8,000 out there to start up an after school program. A little later in the librarian's report, we'll touch on what Kyle and our current early literacy program coordinator are working on putting together a after-school type program for the community to discuss. But that's later. Available right now, approximate funds for early literacy is about $15,000. These are restricted funds. This is the first grant that I wrote when I came in, knowing that the only program that I had running was the early literacy program. And it was a program that we're very successful at. It's doing great. So I wrote that program grant funding specifically for early lit to be able to continue on with offering a 2-day-a-week program and expand the offerings that we're doing right now with early lit and trying to incorporate some more social, emotional, whole family learning. At this point, when we got this report on Monday, we had approximately about 1 month of salary left for staff, which is the 2 EDs, the bookkeeper, and our person that cleans the facility. So approximately, right? And that doesn't include income that we get from the co-op and La Segunda. That, that's another portion. We're just saying what was in the bank at that moment. Things have bumped up, and you'll see that in screenshots later. Other things that we've had grants for that are very specific was insurance. We had a grant in for insurance, and we've got about 6 months of insurance expenses. I believe that covers all of our insurance, from our director's insurance to our property insurance. That's where we're at with that. The early literacy program and our maintenance are paid with restricted funds. That's that grant that I wrote for 15K that came in. And maintenance is with restricted funds for somebody else. There's been an audit request, and a board approved audit request since October. There's currently no money for that. We have some options and still coming through with a way of doing an audit so we can start to address some of these financial concerns. As a reminder, these concerns have been coming up for 2 years. When the stage and community center were being developed and built, we wanted to know what the operational costs were back then and what the increase in operational costs were going to cost the community for the stage and community center. We never gave those reports to the community, so we're still lacking in that information. What was our overhead and what our overhead was supposed to go up to, knowing that we had this building? Those were community questions that had not been addressed. So we still have a lot of reports that need to go back and investigate Fiestas. Again, another report that needs to be generated and discussed and talked about. So there are many reasons for an audit to still be done. There's still bookkeeping that still needs reporting that needs to be done. Kay is doing a great job at addressing these, but still you'll see some of these reports for the early literacy program and the after school program are really kind of all over the place because we're trying to do it fiscal year to date, but the grant hit at this other time. So it's really hard to match up some of these reports, and a lot of Taya has more detail on most everything when we come to financials. Monthly inspection sheet, we are now 100% in compliance with the fire marshal. We have our monthly inspection sheet, checking on those. Plumbing, we're still waiting on estimates from Blackflow and Rudy Valdez for fixing the plumbing issue that we've got going over here. New suggestions from a couple of teams from the community is that community center space be turned into a teen center. So I thought that was a creative, kind of cute, I had to bring it up. We reached out to the county to begin talks about the community senior center as a kitchen resource for our community. So that's where we worked on those. We're also talking with the county commissioner about reducing the rate of the the community center because the rate is completely unaffordable. The mission center has been identified as a possible place for showers that had been brought up earlier in last March board meeting, and we have not made contact with the church to discuss that as an option. Co-op construction, Nancy let us know about a transformer and a new placement of a pole and a transformer box. Unfortunately, this placement affects the intended use of the Acequia infrastructure. So we punted back and we are hoping for a new meeting with Hemis so we can find a new spot for this transformer and pole so it doesn't affect our Acequia system. Website, we're hoping to have our website completely updated by the end of March, which should answer some of the community questions from last month. Currently, right now, you should be able to go to our website and see the board of directors and see who's in what position. So treasurer, president, vice president, all should be listed. So should their email addresses. What will be added is all of this board packet information. You'll be able to go there and then just click the history and it'll all be uploaded. So that'll be one upgrade that kind of will be helpful. The other thing will be helpful is that front page, that homepage will be cleaned up and it's really going to be geared towards events, like what's happening at the library, clean, cut, just needs to be a more modern, bring it up to date. And then we're going to try and get some more information for our KLDK, our Fiestas page, that kind of stuff. So there will be some other updates, but really it's just kind of modernizing the website altogether.
Can you plan to announce when you're able to put that stuff online? I know we've had requests for stuff to be put on the website, and I think it would be best if we just plan to announce when it is there.
I absolutely, bear with me on this, right? I got to get it to Jeff and then Jeff has to get it back to me. So there's going to be a lot of this before we can actually upload this, but I'm hoping March, but it might not be, who knows?
It's been noted.
Like on the staff web page.
Yeah, so those are updated. That's there,
When were
but
they updated? I'm not on it.
You
and
might not be,
You're on it twice. and-
yeah, I don't, probably not recently, probably when these guys
Yeah.
first got on.
So,
So-
it does, I mean,
I'd like to say that I noticed as a staff member, I'm not listed as on the website at all.
Oh, dang. Yeah, no, I think this was,
I mean, you know, if you need a proofreader or something, I just feel like.
no, we didn't, I mean, we just, this was, we sent it off, like, this was send off. Come back, you know, like, this is like, we say, when we send stuff to Jeff to upload to the website,
Oh, Jeff did this?
yeah. And that's probably what we sent him, right? We just said, here, update this, and he probably cleared everything else out. So this is what I mean, communication, right? How many times are you gonna,
And they're only 2 minutes, or I think 1 minute and 1 agenda.
and they're not correct. And those are hot links that don't work to any, they shouldn't work to anything. Those should have been taken off. So we might say that the
We should just
website is currently
Or the page
under,
until we can-
until we actually can, we might,
So
yeah.
we can let people know when it
Yeah.
has them.
Okay, KLDK. We have some go bond money, we kind of. This might be able to address like the updated, Zoom link hybrid course. We have some go bond money that we had earmarked or thought we would be able to use for KLDK. Unfortunately, it can only be used for things that affect the patrons of the library. KLDK doesn't affect the patrons of the library. So this might be a place where we have some money for a Promethean board.
And it's for equipment, right?
And it's for equipment. Yeah, so we can look into this. I need to get back with our contact to find out exactly how much we have in there and then what the appropriate process will be, but we might be able to upload it.
It's equipment, it's also collection, but that's not a large dollar value. It's not wages.
Right.
Right.
It is not wages. yes,
So
but
you're saying equipment, it possibly could go
It
to
possibly
a
could
Zoom,
Good, do the
improved Zoom
right,
setup.
a Zoom setup, so equipment for the library. Grant season just started, Lionel Foundation, 15 February, we submitted one, that's $5,000 if we get it. Again, that was written for social emotional learning. The Santa Fe Community Foundation just opened up, and we haven't written anything specific for that. That'll be written for general operations because we need that. And we just had a walkthrough with our New Mexico Foundation grant this morning, so we're on the second tier for that grant.
New Mexico Foundation?
Mhm.
You have a bio with all the past grants we've written that you can cite and use language, the language that maybe is
Oh, yeah.
online.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. We have grants
For
going
sure.
back for decades.
I wanted to go back to co-op construction. Thanks for the update. I think as the property owners, if there is going to be any grounds or structure work, that the library needs to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Before it happens. So definitely I would say a conversation, another one should happen with Hemes, with you and Annette, and I would ask for options. They can give multiple options for what they're saying,
Yeah.
and then there's choices.
I had a conversation with Nancy about this today, and it's a serious mess that they're gonna try to put the co-op through to try to get this done. And I think that if we can, when we meet with Roberta from Hemis, if we could advocate as much as possible to make the connection just, and I know coming across Highway 75, I don't know what that takes. But, making it direct,
The Senate have to clear something that crosses the highway. I don't,
yeah, it's gonna be a cable, or I don't know, I don't think it's in the realm, but to try to advocate, cause we have so much infrastructure already running through here that to dig a trench from here this way to back around that way would just, I mean, it could be catastrophic, it could also be, you know, in the line with redeveloping that, landscaping that area. It would have to be a pretty serious dance to make it come out best of both worlds to come around.
Right, I mean, our leach field crosses over through there, we have the updated Acequia infrastructure that we're thinking about, I mean, there's a lot to consider when coming over here. so.
How much we can advocate for it to get done is really, really important, because I know that's a huge plus for your infrastructure that they're doing.
Yes, yes. I was wondering, do you happen to know how the power was done into the new community center?
They put a new pole up and dug the line.
Okay,
but it's gonna be a lot different because, if I'm right, you need, two 200 amp. Yeah.
No benefit about it, actually.
Okay,
The wire that's going across the street only supports about 100 amps.
that's it. And you guys need about 400 amp?
Yeah.
Okay,
And well, and it also, it is currently supplying, I think, 5 meters.
oh, wow.
Because it goes to, doesn't go to this building, it goes to the Segunda, it goes to the co-op, it goes to the community center, it goes over to the second meter of the co-op, it goes to the, Peter's.
Yeah, so
place over there.
we're aware that of the need and
And
we're
so-
gonna, we've been talking about it. We're gonna
And
figure
there's
out a way of doing,
a serious structural issue
yes.
with running bigger wires across, that puts a load on the lines pulling them this way. So it's new guy wires that would have to go into large property and have to go into the back here. So it's kind of a mess.
Yeah, Hemmings will figure it out, but
Mhm.
we're on it. Well, we hope that Hemmings can figure it out.
Obligated to, so.
Yeah, exploring all the other possible options other than carrying trench through our. PTO would be important.
Okay.
Do we have separate meters for all the buildings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Co-op has 2, that's part of the problem, is it's non-compliant.
Shocking.
They don't like having 2 meters on one building.
Yeah.
All right. I think we can move on.
Are we ready to move on?
Yeah. to Financial,
So that's the ED report, and then we'll move on to the financial report.
Hi. I'm Taya. We have the first finance committee, meeting on Monday at 4 o'clock. And we decided to do a monthly finance committee meeting on the Monday before the Thursday board meeting. And it'll be at 4:30 and we'll post it, we'll get it online. It's just, it happened on Monday of this week. We're just doing the best we can to get information out there. And at that meeting, it was requested that I present the financial report for the board. So this is not the financial committee meeting report. It is the financial meeting. So, I got asked to produce a lot of reports and I think that what I'd like to do with a handful of board members and with the finance committee is get a better idea, and with the community, get a better idea of exactly what reports you're actually looking for. Because when you ask me for a detailed report of the fiscal spending to date, you know, you get 100 entries for, you know, it's just ad nauseum of all these pennies. A detailed P&L, you know, the way we track, you know, every single photocopy that's made.
Well,
It's really,
I have a big question that I'd like to ask. So when I read the ED report that we have enough funds to cover 1 month of payroll, I felt very worried and wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
So my biggest question is the grant report, the spreadsheet. It shows how much we have in restricted funds, 62,307.86 cents. And then it shows unrestricted 47,472.02. But those are more than we have in the bank account. So what that indicates to me is we don't have what the grant report is saying we have. Could you help me understand why it looks that way?
Yeah, okay, so in the packet that I was given as a photocopied packet, I actually don't have half of the reports that I uploaded. I made other copies just in case I needed them, so. So, okay. So I understand everybody wants to talk about the restricted versus the unrestricted, and I will get to it. First off, I'd like to say that a few things about reports in general is I think that we should, in between now and our March board meeting, is get the treasurer and the executive director, myself, any other committee members or public that wants to be on the finance committee, and maybe some of the Tony or Rebecca, to say, hey, these are the reports, sit down with me, and I can say, these are the reports I can give you, and then these are the reports that I can make and then maintain. And that would be really great to be able to have the bar graphs, like, was suggested. And so, and also, doing reports to date. I don't like doing that because that means how much data have I actually entered in the month of February? Am I up to date, or did I spend all of today working on Go bonds and I haven't done data entry for 4 or 5 days? So I'd really rather have reports that go to the last close and then give you at the board meeting, okay, so the month of February, we did better, we did less, but we'll look at that at the March meeting, right? Like, I can give you what's happening in the last 3 weeks, but I'd rather put reports in the board packet for the community to look at that are to the last closed month that I have reconciled.
Okay, I have other
So,
questions
I have
to,
questions too. I don't-
So like I said, I'd love
Can we
to,
address the question of why does this paper say something different than the bank account?
yeah. Sure, like I said, I know you wanna talk about that report, but I'd really like to talk about getting
Well,
some
here's-
standardized reports.
Here's one of my,
Before I get into the nuts and bolts of the financials, like I just wanted to do some housekeeping before I got into the financials.
so I just
So-
explained my concern. When we first got put on the board, the community said that there was a problem with the finances and they wanted an audit. One of the first things that I was told was that the unrestricted funds and the restricted funds were all living in the same bank account and they were only being kept separate by the bookkeeping.
Yeah.
And we asked for those numbers like 4 months ago, and we're getting them now, and we're at the position now where we say, oh, well, with the unrestricted funds, we have so little, we don't have enough to operate. That would have been great information before. And it seems like the bookkeeping end of it, to take 4 months to get to that report is very concerning for me from a managerial point of view. How can we manage the finances if we're 4 months behind and suddenly we're in a crisis mode when we're told something?
So, I understand, and you're right, it did take me a long time to get to generating this report. There are reasons and there are excuses, but I think that, what I can tell you is I will stop looking at the rest of the reports and I will just talk about the restricted versus unrestricted.
And the discrepancies with the bank account.
Sure. So. Every transaction that comes into the account gets what's called a customer name or a grant name, okay? If you do something at the photocopy and you give me 10 cents, it goes into unrestricted. Okay, that's the name that it gets, unrestricted. 10 cents went into unrestricted. If an actual grant comes in, like the ones Rosalie was talking about, like Frost, McCune, United Way of Northern New Mexico, they get their own grant and they get their own grant by year. Okay, now this is something that was not done in years past, and I have been implementing it since I was hired. But cleaning up the old stuff took a long time, and I thought about it a lot. At the January meeting, I said I would have this report to you by the February meeting. And I had to figure out how to get rid of the old data so that I could look at the current data. And basically what I had to do was make a bunch of names inactive and give new names to things. Because like, all the Go Bond money never even had a Go Bond name. I don't know how Felicity kept track of the Go Bond money. And so,
And Felicity was here years ago,
yeah,
right? And so from the time she left to now, it was years of management.
yeah. And
And
so when I typed in certain things and said, how much money do we have in the account? I was looking at years worth of expenses and not expenses, or money that was in it, but no expenses attached to it. And so I had to be able to say, let's make that inactive so I can look at the current money and the current spending and the current way that I track it. And so every expense that goes out also gets a name attached to it, a customer name. And so it gets unrestricted, or it gets McCune, or it gets United Way
So
2020.
I'm gonna get back to, why is it that the bank account has a different number than this paper?
So the restricted funds, okay, we have a couple of categories of the restricted funds. We have donations on this side, we have grant names, but we also have a handful of other restricted funds, which are programs within the library, KLDK and Santa Rosa. And KLDK does not have a separate bank account. It used to have a separate bank account, and it was absorbed into the library before my time. And so breaking it down is something that nobody's looked at in a while. So that took me some time to kind of sift through and figure out. And then Santa Rosa has had a separate tracking. And so that one was much easier to figure out.
But the money is still in the same
And
account.
yes, it's still all in one account. And then the fiscal sponsors are the bottom. So at the top, we have grants. In the middle, we have programs within the library that are tracked differently than other programs, like after school, it's not tracked this way. And then we have the fiscal sponsored organizations at the bottom. So that's what the left side of this is. Then we have the restricted funds in the bulk in the middle. And then we have these unrestricted. So on every expense, every payroll, every wage, every 10 cents for the photocopy, every $1.50 for federal Social Security, Medicaid, every one of those things gets tagged with a customer name. And whether that customer name is unrestricted, meaning I haven't applied it to any particular grant or not, or whether it gets actually tagged with somebody that I know I'm gonna have to give a report to, that then helps me generate fiscal reports for that grantor. So,
Can I ask a quick question? So has it always been practiced to sort of, put all the money in one account?
yeah,
spend
that's
it?
really, that's really common.
So when we say we're spending unrestricted money, which is what you said last time,
This number's supposed to be both.
is that actual in fact, based on what you're providing
This
us?
number is supposed
Are
to
we
be not included.
spending unrestricted or restricted money for unrestricted line items?
Okay, so I'm gonna just keep going. I will keep your question in mind, and I will see if I can answer it by explaining this report, as I'm actually trying to answer their questions by explaining this report as well, and they are all very good questions. Okay, So we have the Brindle Foundations, and that was a grant that has been received many times in the past years, but this year we received $12,000. And it was earmarked, Brindle Foundation is really focusing right now on the little kids. So it used to cover youth, it used to cover after school, it used to cover other things, but this year in particular, they really wanted to focus on the little kids. And I don't actually know what the distinction is. I couldn't find it in the grant wording. I only got it word of mouth. And that it was, so for the early development program. So I'm thinking under 5 years old, under school age. And so that's why it's in the early development column, okay? And then you can see that I included the Frost Foundation, the
So,
Manhattan Foundation.
I'm lost in the ambiguity of it all. The bank account says that we have about $112,000 in the bank account, all of them put together.
Well,
If you add checking, saving, and the building fund together.
And then this sheet is saying 109,000, which is $2,000 difference.
okay,
And then are we counting all those through the different accounts on?
Yes,
this
does this
page?
spreadsheet include
okay.
those?
So, the restricted funds are strictly a balance of what has come in, what expenses have gone out, that I have said, this is a Brindle expense. This is a, New Mexico Foundation anonymous expense.
Nancy, can, Yeah.
Can I ask this one? Maybe this is perfect. Is the distinction only because it's not at a month end, where all the checks have been delivered?
No. So, okay, so you have a grant that gives you money, and then they give you the money up front, and then you slowly spend it. And so every payroll and every snack that's purchased for the Caterpillar Club gets marked, this is to the Brindle Foundation, okay? And so we have the income, and then we have the expenses, and then we have the balance remaining, okay? And so that balance remaining is the restricted funds in the middle part of this. Over here is what came into us, what we've already spent, and this is the remaining funds. Okay? And so those are the remaining funds. Now, over here under the unrestricted, this is simply a glimpse at some of the unrestricted funds. I did not put all of the unrestricted funds on here because they come from all sorts of places, and you guys wanted to know how safe and secure we were. So I did not include all the rest of the unrestricted funds on this grant, on this report. I only included the funds that the board has been the most interested in most of the time,
So
which is the brand new Frost grant that we just
Rosalia,
got in the fall.
did you
The
ask for
Manhattan,
information on
So
all of the grants?
the answer
Or
is
just
that-
ones, certain ones?
We just wanted to know all restricted versus unrestricted, whatever we have. Like, we needed to know clear financials, the current financial situation of the organization.
So one of my frustrations in entering this position is that I've asked around to other people that are in similar organizations, and I've said, what systems do you use? And most of the answer is QuickBooks. And I say, when you ask for a financial thing that just says restricted or unrestricted, you ask for where the money is. How long does it take to come, and what format does it come? And all the answers that I'm getting is that it comes very quickly, that they're easy things to pull off in QuickBooks. And that it's something that's pretty easy for somebody to look at, like the gentleman was saying with bar graphs and whatnot. And so when the community was asking back in October when we came on for transparency with the financials, I now understand why they want that, because I'm struggling, and I'm working with it every week trying to understand.
so here's the thing, is that we didn't have a report before that said which grants were restricted and which grants were unrestricted. So I had
How
to
can you
look back.
operate that?
So
That was illegal.
Like, how is that good management?
I had not been tasked or asked to do this work before Rachel left. Rachel was doing it and she was doing a great job of managing it. And she was, I don't know how she was keeping track of it.
Where did that go then?
So I don't know where she was keeping track of it, and
But
she
you're-
might have just
you're
been
the
keeping track
bookkeeper.
of it in her brain. Like, I'm
That's
looking at the
not a-
bank account and I know
that's-
I have these five.
But that's not how you run a
grants.
business.
That's not how you run a
Or a
business. That's not a
nonprofit.
great way of doing things.
Well, you know, the prior board, I know under Felicity, different boards would ask for different reports. And I know that under Rachel, the board asked for different reports. And I know that now this board is asking me for this report. And I have created, and we can edit this report if you don't like it.
The
But I-
community is asking for transparency on the finances, and we've been
Yep.
trying to get to that. We've been trying to get
Yep.
to the audit and the transparency. And
Yep,
I'm just wondering, like, at what point do we go to an actual modern system that can pull all of that stuff as opposed to using the,
pull up a report today on any number of grants back there. But to say, well, which one is restricted and which one is not restricted? I had to look through every single grant in the file folders and on the desktop for funds that have been received for the last 2 fiscal years to make sure and to do due diligence to make sure, yes, we've spent that $400 out. That's not even on this grant.
so the problem
Yes,
that I
we
ran
spent
into
this out. And
is,
so
the problem
I
that I've run
worked
into
towards,
is, when I've talked to other people that have been in nonprofits and, that letter from, Chris that came through
Mhm.
on how important it is not to spend the restricted funds.
it's true,
What I have found from other nonprofits is that it's such a big deal that they actually put things in separate bank accounts. So they're not dipping in and
Yep.
they're coming out of separate bank accounts
some do.
and they're keeping very good track of the money as they go along. And so that's a modality that I would like us to start moving towards as soon as possible. Because I think that what's been happening in the past creates way too much of a gray area to step over that line.
I also work with a lot of different nonprofits. And I also know of a lot of different nonprofits, and some of them have different bank accounts and some of them don't have different bank accounts. And you are absolutely right that a restricted versus an unrestricted report is an integral part of knowing about the organization.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that we have this groundwork. If you guys want different bank accounts, that's up to the board, that's fine, I can do it any way.
Well, I'd also
I'm
like-
capable
I'd also
of
like the
doing it.
modern bookkeeping.
I'd like to address some of the questions though, so.
Let me just real quick, Tia, please. So I think that it's easy to look back and see all of the past occurrences that happened even, before your time, Rosalia, and identify that in many different ways. I really want to talk about how we move forward. As much as we are gonna have to face the past, looking at an audit, I really want to figure out how we can get a report that is accurate and not confusing. And, I also work with many nonprofits that use one bank account and they can generate a report within minutes. Not for weeks. And, after going through this report and looking at these itemized and, going into the office and looking at the past reports, it feels like, for lack of better words, the part was being built as it was rolling down the road, and therefore what has landed us in the position. And I know not everyone else has had to talk, but I wanted to say that in my, reflection of our financial situation, we have been operating, when a normal healthy nonprofit does its fundraising today, that's for a year in the future. Because that's how long it takes for you to get the grant approved, to do a meeting with the foundation, to then receive the money, to build program, and then to implement program. the fact that we are in the red tells me that a year ago from today,
We're not in the red.
well, it appears that we're in the
We
red.
are not.
Last meeting, you said we were in the red.
I said we were close.
So we were close and we're very close. I know there's -16 unraised funds that I have looked at. My point is that without going back, you know, and this addresses some of the gossip that I've heard in the community about, you know, Rachel and such. I think that the board as it stood before us didn't grossly negligently do things wrong. They just didn't know how to do it. They didn't have the financial, the professional, the communal capacity to.
Okay, I'd like
Wait,
to
can I just
keep
finish?
going.
You need to let
I need to tell the board this because it's important. We are building this from the ground up and we have to look at it like that. And the community also. Unfortunately, in the past, things weren't managed right. We put our trust and confidence in individuals who aren't bad people. They just didn't know how to do it in a way that could create sustainability. There is zero sustainability in this organization, not because it's unsustainable space. This place should absolutely be sustainable. We just didn't have the capacity as an organization to arrive at that. And that's where I want to go. That's the direction I want. I want the grants of today to be feeding the youth next year and this time. Because we can't run. I'm a single parent and I depended on the after school program. And instead I cut my daily work schedule by 3 hours just so I could come and pick up my daughter. These are having massive implications on our communities. So I just wanted to say that and I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
I think we're all trying our best and yeah.
So-
Rebecca has more questions as well.
Oh.
Can I try to answer your first question?
Well, I'm having a real hard
Yeah.
time because when you try to answer, it goes all over the place.
So, real quick, Tia, so the $2,000 that we're trying to account for, so you're saying that,
3,000.
I'm sorry, 3,000.
Okay,
So
so,
that's like another couple of restricted programs that just weren't put into the report tonight, right?
no,
No, okay.
okay, so,
I wanted to for a time check. So at 7:50, it was the goal for getting to the closed session. And I'm watching the time go and
That's 14 minutes away.
so I talked about one of my top questions. My second one for Rosalia and Taya is why is there not money for an audit? Because it feels like everything indicates that we really need an audit instead of trying to figure out what is going on with this.
Can I say something very quickly? Very quickly. From the research that I've done recently, I think an audit is not a good idea. Number one, it is extremely expensive. I think every audit is very expensive. So where that comes from, where they're gonna come from, I don't know. The other thing is the state doesn't require it unless you have $750,000 in expenses, which we don't. So we're not really required by the state. And the third thing is, it appears that we could get actually probably better information from an accountant that we hire to go through these books or whatever they need to go through and not actually do a formal audit, because then we're also sort of endangering our potential grants and all. And so it just seems.
You have to elaborate, on why, because why we would be endangering future grants. Well, how does an audit endanger future grants?
I don't.
My understanding is when grants see that, you've been audited.
When we have.
No.
Grants actually. It's actually works in the opposite, like, so we would be open, and my reason for wanting an audit as the ED and the person who's writing grants. 70 to 80% of the grants that I can apply for require a financial audit, and we don't have one. So it would open us up to a lot more grant funding that would be
Are we talking about
sustainable.
the audit right now? Have we moved on to the?
Yeah,
next
yeah,
agenda?
I asked a question.
Yes. They don't accept, no, they will accept an audit, you upload your most recent audit, and so that is very helpful in grant funding, so I would advocate for an audit. To open us up to sustainable grant funding,
It should
something
be
that,
done every year.
yeah,
So I found an email in the documents. This is from 2006. This is to the board. This is from Miley the old executive director, and Felicity, the bookkeeper at the time, before she was executive director. So they went to a financial management workshop and they wanted to share some information. First, audits are extremely expensive and funders haven't denied us funds because we haven't had one. However, the most important purpose of an audit is to have some independent oversight of the bookkeeping. One of the presenters suggested that we could do a board audit. This means a group of board members agree every year to inspect the bookkeeping as thoroughly as possible.
Okay,
Well,
so,
I actually like the idea of an audit if it checks on the bookkeeping. That's great. And we've already voted for an audit. The
yeah,
it's already
I,
asked for one.
I think that
At
if
this-
the
at
board,
this
if the board
point-
is really wanting to double check that expenses are spent the way the expenses are spent and that grants are spent
I
the
don't
way
think
grants
that's-
are spent. I am so happy to walk you through every single line item for the last 3 years, show you the bank statements and the receipts.
There's so much more that's going on than just that. And it's
Okay.
voices from the community that have asked for it, that want transparency, and want accountability,
Also about this report,
fundability. Yeah.
you've asked me a couple of questions. Well, fundability, I mean, Felicity, Miley, Rachel, they got plenty of funds to run the organization without having a grant. So we have,
In
An audit,
2006,
you mean.
Pre-COVID, pre all this other stuff, we're
No,
all different.
Felicity was in 2020, 2020, her
So I,
grants arrived in 2020.
Taya, it's already noted that you're against an audit, so
I am
you do,
not against
you do
an
not have,
audit.
you don't
I
have to
am-
argue it
I am
anymore.
not against an
You've just
audit.
read a paper saying that you're against audit, so
I'd
um,
like to make a motion.
we're gonna,
Against audits.
we're gonna
It's
make a
just that
motion.
They're
We're going into closed session.
expensive.
So I'd like,
I have a suggestion, and that is if we could find a similar organization that has a similar financial area that does audits and can find that audit at a reasonable price, that we could find someone who could do it at a reasonable
we're
price.
shopping.
So I'd like to
We
make,
put out.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I emailed the finance, let's see, beginning of November, after we had approved for an audit, names of 9 audit companies, a list. So I'd like to make a motion that the directors prepare an RFP to be sent out to this list of 9 for an audit, and we can set the parameters. And that by the next board meeting, the regular board meeting, we have any responses from any of these auditors given to the board so we can look at the prices and the scope. And I would say in the RFP for the directors to make sure that we have language that reflects that we are compliant with our articles of incorporation, that we're compliant with any federal and state regulations, that we're compliant with our grants. And I would be very interested to know what the price is. So sorry, I'm mixing that up, but that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, and
keep that much?
no,
No?
can-
I will write it down and then I
Write it
can
down.
read it to you.
Okay, thank you. While you're writing it down, I would like to clarify a few things on this document that you've been asking for. One, this is not saying what's in any of the bank accounts. I am not looking at what's in the USDA account, which has $1,000 and change. And that's just a bank account that's sitting there. It never gets touched. We had to open that bank account when we built the building and it was used for USDA funds. And it has $1,000 of our money just sitting in it, $12 of interest before they stopped, before the account became basically inactive. And so it's just sitting there at $1,000, 12. And so that's just sitting there. Then we have the reserve account that has about $26,000 in it. And that is a reserve account that sits and earns interest and it hasn't been used or touched in a very long time. We have not added to it or detracted from it,
Is that the
except for
business savings?
interest.
That's the business. savings.
That's the 26,000. That's the business savings. The PPP account was an account that got opened for the payroll protection plan under COVID.
Right.
Funds went into it, funds went out of it, it's closed account.
All right, we have the written,
Okay,
Okay,
so I'm making a motion that the directors prepare an RFP request for proposals to go out to the list of auditors that was emailed to them on November 3rd. For the directors to bring back to the board at the next board meeting, the monthly March board meeting, the responses they've received, and that the scope of work asks for how to verify our compliance with our articles of incorporation with federal and state regulations and our grants.
okay, and we have a second for it.
Second.
Yes, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Nays? Okay, we are moving on to a closed door session in
you have
4
asked
minutes.
a couple of very important questions about why the totals here don't reflect the totals in the bank.
Can you make it
Because-
succinct
Or email,
or make an
maybe
email?
you guys should meet and have a
Figure it out.
conversation about that. And in fact, I feel like this reflects that the directors need to make a job description, so it's clear in terms of the roles, and the board needs to make director job descriptions, the personnel committee.
Yes.
So that it's clear, because if there are reports that are taking this long, it's hard to figure out what was dropped and by who.
It's
And
hard
so that
for-
we know what the compensation, what the bookkeeper is being compensated to do,
Mhm.
according to the job
Because
description.
Okay.
we're having a hard time with accountability. Are you accountable because the
Right.
report that we asked for 4 months ago? Was Taya accountable because you asked her 4 months?
Well, and from the
Where does it
perspective of
actually
the
go?
board, because the directors are
Your
employees,
choice, yeah.
the accountability falls to the directors and how they're doing with the employees. So if the job description, I would suggest, and the board, others can say, if in 2 weeks from now, if the job description can be completed and put into place, and if there's questions about it at the next board meeting, we could talk about it, but that it go into effect in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Does anyone have?
That sounds reasonable.
Does it?
Sounds
Yeah.
great.
And I know, there's a lot of feelings and emotions that go into a meeting where suddenly we realize that the institution is in a lot more trouble than we thought. And we've been trying to be very gentle about cleaning things up and getting transparency and taking care of the community, and taking care of the organizations that we shelter. So for instance, Nancy, it's really important for us to make sure that your building structure and everything is being taken care of. And we have so much to manage in that, that I'm at that point right now where a little of my patience is worn out and I'm like ready, like I've already seen how things were handled in the past and I'm ready for it to be managed better. So that we don't have this lag time, to make important decisions and really take care of things. And I hope that everybody understands that it's a necessary thing. It's like we're bringing light into the organization to clean it up
I
and
would
fill
also
it.
like to say that, the Rosalia, as the fundraising person, has not made a meeting to meet with me to discuss the restricted grants.
Okay,
So,
noted.
I
At that, we're at
I would
7.
like to, and
Hey, I've been waiting for a report for 4 months. It's really hard to have a meeting if we don't have a report. I mean,
we can look at each of the individual grants. We could have gone through it. We could have cleaned it up. We could have looked
There's
through
lots
each
of-
of the ones with the grant.
Taya, will you let
Say,
Sylvia?
say, there is a way to talk about all of this, all of it, okay? In a way where we can stay really focused on what we want to achieve without embarrassing anybody, without making anybody feel less, without, there's ways we need to stay very, very focused. The thing is you two need to have a meeting. That's it.
I agree.
And that should be it, have the meeting, but don't get into the whodunit thing. You know?
It'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay.
I agree.
With a good, solid, accurate, with every penny report.
mhm.
Skip that.
The financial.
Because you
Maybe
all have
we should
talents.
Move on to that.
And the important thing is to bring our talents together
Did you get
into
to number
a
three?
really
Yeah.
vibrant, unified, empowering situation.
So I'd officially, thank you so much. I'd officially like to move on to item number 3, the financial audit status. And future plans.
Okay, I was just finding out that we didn't officially move on to number 3, even though we already covered that stuff.
Yeah.
I can put a motion,
Mhm.
maybe second it.
I second it.
So that's all.
And we voted,
Voted.
yeah.
And then we need to do our closed door session.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and do our closed door session now. If we have
But
time
as
to
a
come
point
back.
of order, then let's say that number 4, we're going to table.
We do not know that yet because we don't know how much
They're coming
time it's
back
gonna be.
out.
Oh, so you're reorganizing.
No, you're correct. We're tabling numbers 4 and 5, librarian report and La Segunda report. They are uploaded into the board packet.
And
So
you're moving on to
we're
number 6.
moving to number 6.
Okay,
What's the point of order?
Thank you.
thank you.
So
So they're welcome to stay around and wait for us. although
you
we
guys
don't
wanna
know
stay
how long
around?
it's gonna take.
We don't know how long.
You guys are moving there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so official motion to move into closed session.
Second.
All those in favor? Ayes.
Wait. No, wait, these guys are, someone has to take them. And get everyone else off on the board.
The charter?
I don't know, what's it at? Yeah, you're good.
I'm good. Okay.
You can take-
All right, guys.
That's your mic.
Those of you who are on Zoom that are board members, please stay. Those of you who are not board members, I will kindly ask for you to leave and we and we will come back on after our closed session. I will few minutes to log off those of you who are not board members.
Charlotte, I am excused from personnel committee, personnel meeting, so I'm gonna go.
Okay, we'll see you, Kyle. Thank you
Guys.
for coming.
Thank you. Bye.
I'm going to, oops, hi, guys. I'm gonna pause this real quick. Because we're still being recorded.
Oh.
Yeah, let me pause the recording.
Well, that recording.
I'll be leaving as well, Charlotte. I can't stay any longer.
Okay, all right, thank you, Jennifer. Let me see, where, oh, there it is. Stop, pause recording, okay.
Recording. Wait,
Okay,
yeah, okay.
okay, I make a motion to end closed session.
Second.
Okay, I make a motion for the director to draft the library policy for board staff and volunteers with specific language stating that library funds cannot be used for personal expenses. And that if it occurs, it could result in termination and or criminal prosecution. And that personal expenses be defined in the policy. And the directors draft a policy defining the process for how payments on expenses are authorized and made. That specifies that board members are not allowed to authorize payments on expenses.
I second it.
All the ayes,
I
nays, motion carries.
make a motion that the board chair create and send a certified letter to recoup lost monies in fiscal year 23-24 and report back to the board upon receiving certified letter verification via closed session.
I second.
Ayes,
I
nays, motion carried.
motion to end this meeting.
Motion adjourned. Seconded.
Aye.
I'd like to.
Thank you all.